the very first we are ready podcasts. And in fact, we are going to make it. Before we get started today, we have some really cool guests. The theme for this show was one where I wanted to get people who have been very integral into my growth into the Stacks ecosystem. And so I've got some cool guests today. One of them's running behind, but hopefully he'll be able to make it. Um, Before we get started, though, I'd like to give a big shout out to Flagship FYI, who is sponsoring this podcast. Flagship is, some of you, if you follow me on Twitter, already know. They have a really cool system developed for people who are just getting into the crypto spaces. So basically, Flagship allows people to essentially invest in crypto like someone who's not a early adopter degen like myself and like many of you would. Most people are just going to want crypto exposure, right? So through Flagship, they can invest in these baskets and vaults, which are essentially, think of like a ETF, like a crypto ETF. And there's much more than that as well. And there's a DAO, and as most of you know, I believe DAOs are going to be an absolutely huge narrative for crypto here going forward. And where I kind of fit in is every coin that Flagship offers, a chance to invest with in one of their baskets or vaults. They have outposts which are just full of information with experts who are following the ecosystem and giving the community the up-to-date news. And I am actually the captain for the Stacks outpost with Flagship. So just go ahead and click on that link and check those guys out. It's a really, really cool project. I wish something like this would have existed when I first started in crypto back in 2017. It just shows the immense growth and where we're headed. And it while you're clicking links, go ahead and check out jackbenswitch.com. I have some pretty cool links there, links to all of my work on Sigle, as well as some stuff for you to check out. Without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our guest. Right now, we have the Doc joining us. Doc was one of my very first friends in crypto, in Stacks ecosystem particularly. Is in the Stacks advocates together. We're waiting on Atlas, who is, they're kind of like the Batman and Robin of the Stacks ecosystem, and they're going to talk to us today a little bit about what they've got going on with NFT Clothing Club. And we also are very honored to have DanTrevino from the Stacks ecosystem. Dan is a developer. If you've ever saw the NFT project, the Stacks boom boxes, those are Dan's. Dan has a technical understanding of Stacks that surpasses most people's understanding. And he's the host of Purple Pill Fridays, which is actually a place where we would go on these Twitter spaces 4 o'clock Friday evening, talk Stacks sometimes for hours. And Dan's responsible for so much of my knowledge and growth. It's a true privilege to have him here on the show with us. So good morning, y'all. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I'm excited to be here. Honestly, it's been going well. It's been going well. I'll let Dan get his.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. It's been great recently. A lot of work, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, it was kind of neat recently. There's been so much going on with Ordinals that it has kind of sucked all of the energy out of the room for just about everything else, and crypto related. And it's cool because a lot of the Ordinal stuff is so easy to use right now because of Stacks developers, right? Like Xverse and Hero and Gamma and NeoSwap, Satoshiables. It really showed just how much Stacks works with Bitcoin, right? And but we don't have any new market participants right now, just in terms of looking at like a macro scale. It's still the same bit of people in crypto that's been paying attention for a while now. So it does seem to suck all the air out the room, especially with 1 million ordinals coming up. Probably will be today, if not this weekend, right? We'll have over 1 million inscriptions done on the Bitcoin side. So I just wanted to take a chance to talk about stacks a little bit here with you this morning. And so yeah, stacks 2.1, where it went live just about without a hitch. Dan, can you tell us a little bit about how you feel stacks 2.1, is setting up stacks for the next couple of years here with the next few updates?
Yeah, I think I think almost without a hitch is the keyword here, is almost. I think issues have been relatively minor. So that's great. It really kind of goes to the testing and development efforts that were ahead of time. And 2.1 ended up being what, like a year long or a year and a half long implementation. So probably bigger than what the core devs were actually looking to do. But I think we started adding some features in and adding some updates into other parts of the code that made it much bigger than I think initially expected. But it was worth the wait. I think we've seen better miners.
Yeah, I heard lose Dan
throughput.
right there. There we go.
And overall, just kind of like a more robust network, right? I'm really looking forward to the Nakamoto consensus update report later. That'll really kind of like step on the gas for us.
I'm glad you brought that up, because do you mind real quick giving kind of like a high level view to the viewers of what the Nakamoto upgrade will entail?
I don't have all the dirty details. I think the key pieces are obviously faster block times. That's going to be a huge win for everybody. But also that 150 block kind of Bitcoin security window, where after 150 blocks or after 100 blocks, I forget which it is, basically you won't be able to reorg stacks without reorging Bitcoin too. So really inheriting deeper level of Bitcoin security there.
I think that's the kind of thing that, well, it's funny because we consider stacks to be a layer of Bitcoin, right? But then when you look at stacks in the terms of what it is, in terms of a blockchain, it has a lot of layers to it. And it's so easy, I think, for people to, you get so used to crypto tickers, right? And okay, so BTC, ETH, you might know, SOL, but after a while they all kind of run into each other. And then you have this STX, and it's so easy for people to just look at the price action and not really understand what this actually does when you're talking about taking a blockchain and giving it the security of Bitcoin. That's unparalleled. I mean, when you talk to like a Ethereum maxi, they're like, well, Bitcoin can't do this, it can't do that, it's slow, it's all of these things. And now you have, but none of them will say Bitcoin's not safe. None of them, if they're not delusional. So then you have something that says, yeah, we can also have the safety of Bitcoin, but we can also now allow Bitcoin to do all of these things that it can't do in and of itself. And I think that's huge, man. It's absolutely huge.
I think
there's so much there. Sorry, go Doc.
I personally think the continual stacking is actually a pretty cool feature in the 2.1 upgrade myself. So
yeah, I'd agree with that. So you're kind of the show's resident stacking expert. So do you want to dive in a little bit on that in terms of how that works and how that might even affect boomboxes, and you can even let the audience know kind of what you've done in that area?
Well, yeah. So the ability to not have to miss stacking windows with a cooldown reward cycle for stackers is great, because it potentially it depends on how you're stacking previously, but if you were stacking every 2 weeks or every week in a pool, then you're basically missing, a half, a third, a quarter of your APY just because of those cooldown periods. If you're stacking longer, then maybe you're missing less. But for those people who want to keep their stacks liquid and still get the higher APY, it's a huge win because now you can do week to week if you wanted to, or every 2 weeks, depending on the pool that you enter, and get your full APY and still have a lot more liquidity with your stacks, right? So you're not stuck locking them for 3 months or 6 months or something like that. So that's a huge win for everybody. I agree. That's another big win. In terms of boom boxes, we actually are updating the whole boombox flow to make sure that it works better with the continuous stacking. I think with boomboxes, they've got their own thing because we generally work with community artists. It takes some time to organize, plan, get assets and metadata and media out, and so what does that mean when you can continuously stack? Like if you want to stack for 1 week at a time and keep that liquidity, do I just look at your continuous stacking activity to offer a boombox? In the previous regime in 2.0, you had to actively go out and redelegate, and then we issued a boombox based on that redelegation. Now, you're not necessarily redelegating, you're just extending, right?
All right.
But it's not the same mechanism, and you don't necessarily have to go and do a physical activity to do that. So we'll probably have to enable something like that, something more like specifically active to get that new boombox every time. But we thought it was going to be easier.
Yeah.
But
Well,
like Frieger and I have spent like hours talking through like, what about this situation? What about that situation? Do we just do this? Do we just, we've gone through several different options to make sure everything works as expected. And yeah, we're still, we have a contract. I wanted to get something out for 56. We worked with the Rhythms guys. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that project.
yeah.
But karaoke on Web3 to get an NFT, and we got it already. And then I had some issues deploying the contract, so didn't make 56. So
Back to the drawing board. We
yeah.
know you'll sort it out though, man. I'm glad we're kind of talking about NFTs right now. Doc is not just a photographer who has released his own NFT collections, but he is also one of the entrepreneurs here at Stacks. So do you have anything you'd like to talk about with the project that you and Nat work on?
Yeah, I guess we can start there. So NFT Clothing Club is something we've been working on for a bit over a year now. It's taken a lot, but we've also taken small breaks from it here and there to focus on our events and community focused around London there, which is STXLDN or Stacks London. So we've been working on both, but we're here to focus on NFT Clothing Club at the moment. And so what we're doing is we are trying to bring what we like to call phygital fashion to Web3, which is physical and digital. And we're hoping to implement some NFC chips. I mean, we're working on it right now. We have a company working with us to get those working and out there. We got a great guy coding at the moment.
So
but
let me ask you a question. So when you say digital and physical, like clearly, first I think it's worth mentioning that this is you're kind of thinking ahead of the curve. I mean, when you guys started working on this, everyone was still kind of absorbed, and a lot of retail is to this extent still looking at the PFP part of what an NFT does, right? And I think it's cool because we're sitting here now where you have ordinals, which are art on a Satoshi or data on a Satoshi, right? But it's not a smart contract.
Right.
So, I mean, it's my personal belief that at this point, NFTs really have to lean into their programmability to stand out from ordinals, right? Because if you're just looking at a straight up picture on the blockchain, you know, Bitcoin's got this narrative kind of cornered as far as I'm concerned. But you need the programmability. So when you say digital and physical, can you dive into that a little bit more?
So we saw we saw just like the profile pics being released as NFTs, and you know, the same thing happened on ETH. You know, a lot of people were scammed or rugged, or like they just really didn't get anything out of it other than that PFP. So we were looking at that and we were thinking, man, we need to bring the message back. We need to bring the message back to Bitcoin. And the way we are doing that is through utilizing stacks to bring the message back to Bitcoin and to show people that not everything is just a PFP or a rug pull.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we are going to be having so many physical garments being released for each digital collection.
Nice. So is there any chance 5 years from now, say, that I'm going to log into the metaverse and be able to use my NFT clothing club, you know, parka or jeans or what have you onto Metaverse Jack and go walk around the what
So love you too, Hunter.
Kids are awesome.
So yeah. So she always likes to bug me while I'm on a call, but yeah. So honestly, we plan on doing physical. We plan on doing like just your normal NFT, and then we plan on doing a 3D version for the metaverse in the long run as well. So that's something we've been working on. We've been working quite a bit. I know. I don't know how much depth Nat wanted me to go in here because I was kind of relying on him, so I don't let too much out. You know what I mean?
It's still
yeah. That is definitely something we've actually been working on.
It's cool, man. It's forward thinking because people use money, people use clothes, people utilize fashion. I mean, you know, it wasn't, I bet you weren't too many cavemen into it before the first cave woman had a mink wrapped around her neck, right? Like, I mean, it's just, this is human nature. Cool. While we are talking about,
we can't have your metaverse guy walking around naked.
No,
just can't. So we gotta make some clothing for him.
That's not gonna work at all. Dan, I was wondering if you had any thoughts about NFTs and ordinals. You know, just what your thoughts are. Let's start with that.
Boom was actually the first NFT platform on Stack. So we've been kind of part of that whole world for a long time. My previous co-founder was way more into me, and he kind of pulled me in. I've been more of a collector of friends' art, so I'm less of a degen, but I do enjoy supporting people I know and projects that I know and projects that I trust. So I have a good collection of NFTs, including the docs. I've got some of his photos. Excuse me.
Thank you, Dan.
But in terms of like ordinals, like you said, that was such a huge new thing that the Stacks community jumped on. I think, what was interesting to me, I kind of saw ordinals as, or I see them as this, they're basically propellant, right? Like we saw Stacks transitioning to Bitcoin over time. That's why many of us were here, because we wanted like additional functionality on Bitcoin, and Stacks was kind of the best way to like get that incrementally, right? And Ordinals came out, and like you said, so many in the Stacks community, experts, Hero, Gamma, Satoshables, jumped on that and just like threw a whole bunch of gas on that fire, right? And just kind of catapulted Stacks forward. And I think that was awesome. I love to see it. Ordinals are also, I think, unlock a lot of functionality that is going to go beyond obviously NFTs, right? So people have put executable applications inside of Ordinals, games, other things. So I think we're going to see a lot more coming from not just Ordinals, but Taproot and those exploitations of Taproot.
Yeah, I think that one of the cool things about it is, you know, at least a discussion that had been going on in the background of the Stacks community is, you know, at what point do Bitcoiners start to embrace smart contracts? And I've always been a little contrarian where that was concerned, because I come from Ethereum. So I was always thinking, guys, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be the Ethereum folks who really jump in this and see what's going on here, because they don't come from this mindset that Bitcoin is it, that the Bitcoin is as good as it's ever going to be, right? And I think that's playing out so far. I don't hold out much hope for, you know, Bitcoin maxis to really jump on board with any of this anytime soon. But I think that, you know, with the attention that this is getting from ETH, and then when you add in what we're building on Stacks, I think that as the next round of retail comes in, I think Ordinals are going to be, I think it's going to be a massive bull run in and of itself. You know, it's just, it's, you see these things play out as a market participant over time. And this one is just really got a lot of momentum, you know, without a whole lot of market participants. So it's going to be interesting to see ultimately what this looks like on the other end. But how do we, as an NFT collector, you know, I've again, much like you, Dan, I support my friends. I buy the art I like. You know, I have some NFTs that, you know, I'm going to keep forever. How does, what do you think? Well, both of you, how does a NFT project stand out right now with, you know, this burgeoning ordinals, inscriptions kind of narrative forming up and getting ready to take off? What I'd like to get y'all's thoughts on that for sure.
Okay, I got an example of one that really stood out to me when it popped out, and that was narcotics systems by this is number one. And it's all because of what they did there with their UI.
Right.
You go onto their website, and I honestly thought that was really cool. So that, for example, that sticks out to me, just doing something other than PFP release, you know, showing that like there's, you can do a lot more with your project, you know, token gate it, whatever. And I think that's what really sticks out to me, is just the utilities behind them.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Narcotics is doing something very, very cool concept. The whole idea of these NFTs acting as this means by which you can interact with, you know, this different experience. So it's almost like a ticket, but you know, in this sense, it's a digital pill, you know, to go have this different experience. I think that's a great example. I'm glad you brought that up. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I have to concur. I mean, I think we've seen the utility NFTs kind of continue to be useful. Sigle app, you know, and specifically like the things that they're doing, adding functionality for the holders of those NFTs, and raising funds for their development. Things like that, I think, are really what people are going to start looking for. I think more than just the images and things like that. Like, what kind of utility, what kind of functionality, what are you doing to build a community, right? And outside of just adding additional NFTs or additional pieces of NFTs.
Right. No, fair enough. And yeah, I'm obviously a huge fan of Sigle. That's a great team, and it's a great product. I wanted to switch gears here real quick. Um, in terms of what we have going on, and kind of the theme of the podcast is this: we are ready. Uh, you know, it's been quite evident now that people are. I think people who've been involved with Bitcoin or crypto for a while kind of realize that there was this friction between what we're trying to do and what the traditional financial system and the governments and the politicians and what their ideas are, and we're really starting to see this friction heat up right now. And if we could we play that clip real quick from that tweet? And I just want to switch gears and talk about this just for a second.
Currency help.
Well, two things. Number one, it will be decided in October. So we are preparing the ground. We want to be ready. We want to be trained, but it will not be decided until October 23. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm personally convinced that we have to move ahead is a situation like the one we are in now. We are dependent on the supply of gas by a very unfriendly country. I don't want Europe to be dependent on an unfriendly country's currency. For instance, I don't know, the Chinese currency, the Russian currency, the whatever. Or dependent on a friendly currency, but which is activated by a private corporate entity like, Facebook or like Google or anybody like that.
I'm user of Bitcoin too, so I had bought it when it started, and I hope that it also will work in for.
We can pause it right there. Basically, who this is the president of the European Union Central Bank, and what she's talking about, she thinks she's talking to the president of Ukraine, right? This is like a high level prank call, basically. She thinks she's talking to Zelensky, and she's not. So she goes into talking more about how they're getting ready to unveil CBDCs in Europe as early as October. Right. And for people who don't know, the idea of a CBDC is a central bank digital currency. So it's crypto infrastructure with basically fiat monetary policy pushing it. Right. This is working no different than the Federal Reserve System we have in our country, except now it's on crypto rails. And I do encourage everyone to look at that whole thing. And you see this disconnect. That's the thing that really stood out to me is a little later in that video, she says, well, as of right now, people in the EU, if they spend more than $1,000, their account gets flagged, they could get fined, they could, even go to jail. So it's like this disconnect. It's a chasm that is not going to be bridged, I don't believe, because under no circumstances do I think it's okay for someone to be like, well, you can't spend this money that's yours over a certain amount without, filling out, 17 different kinds of, we can play them more. Go ahead, play some more. Let's finish it. It's only 3 minutes.
It's the beauty of Europe. It has different positions. If you ask in Northern Europe, for instance, in the Netherlands, they're quite happy to see the e-euro coming. If you ask a young German man, he'll say, yeah, fine. As I said, I don't want Meta, Google, or Amazon to suddenly come up with a currency that would take over the sovereignty of Europe. I don't want a foreign currency to become the currency of trading within Europe. So we have to be ready.
No, the problem is they don't want to be controlled. They don't want to.
Yeah, but you know what? Now we have in Europe this threshold above 1,000 euros, you cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the gray market. So you take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But you know, the digital euro is going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right. You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, you know, anything that is around 300, 400 euros, we could have a mechanism where there is zero control. But that could be dangerous. The terrorist attacks on France back 10 years ago were entirely financed by those very small anonymous credit cards that you can recharge in total anonymity.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get some discussion going around this, because this is a chasm that we're not going to be able to meet halfway on. I don't believe. I think there's a mindset at a certain level of government or institution that is so antithetical to the mindset of someone who is liberty minded, right? Who just kind of wants to exist and doesn't feel like it's right to have intrusion into their personal lives. Who's complete law abiding citizens, you know? So you take that's a pretty recent one. There's been some other videos like that this week. You know, we've had the very famous senator from the United States, Elizabeth Warren, you know, start her anti-crypto crusade. I just wanted to get some thoughts from you all on how do you think we get from where we are to where we're going, and what does that potentially look like? Let's start there. Who wants to take that first?
Dan, you want to take that one, or you want me to just?
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I have opinions. Y'all may or may not be aware, but I don't worry about expressing my opinions. Like I totally agree with you. This is dumb and scary and like typical government reaction to what they perceive as fear, right? Like we can't have somebody having microtransactions because, oh my gosh, they're going to blow something up or they're going to create some, you know, chaos. And not only do they perceive the fear in the population, they stoke it and they use it, right? It's just hard for me to like express how terrible this kind of action is going to be for not just people who want privacy, but people who, you know, don't think they need it, right? That aren't aware of the issues that are going on and just want to go out and buy groceries. Already we see things like insurance companies getting access to information that influence how you're required to buy insurance. The kind of, you know, you're required by law to buy insurance here in the US. And now these insurance companies can basically use the amounts of data that they have to not discriminate, but to punish those who kind of need it the most. Take that and just kind of, you know, amplify it for every kind of financial transaction that we need. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I could see that. Doc, you got any thoughts?
In general about CBDCs, I honestly don't like the idea. I could see it being like much like our actual fiat dollar is. I could see it being over circulated, in a sense, inflated. And I think central banking having too much power is just never a good thing. So
no, I tend to agree with that. It's just it's I think that one of the things that we overlook as crypto natives is that we're early adopters, and early adopters have certain traits, and one of those traits, I believe, is the ability to turn something into sort of an obsession. And so it makes sense to enter this space and be like, wow, you know, this tech's really cool. But when you get right down to it, the idea that you can just freely transact with someone else, that is a fundamental human right. And I am of the political persuasion that a government's job is to protect people's human rights. They do not grant them. They actually are supposed to protect them. Otherwise, we'd all just be subdivided into little communities and everyone's on their own, right? That's the whole thing about government, pooling resources and making everything safer and more prosperous for everyone. So when you're talking about having a bank that can control everything you do with your money and control the monetary policy, you're dealing with the worst part of fiat, which we have this fractionalized reserve fiat banking system that every dollar in the bank that you deposit, they can just lend out 3. And then you just have to worry that, well, you have to hope that not everyone wants their money at the same time, or else you have a bank run. That's bad policy. Bitcoin fixes that, right? And then you have being able to transact freely with anyone else. Bitcoin fixes that. And so as we're seeing these banking problems get all of this airplay, and people becoming more aware of that things might not be quite as copacetic as they thought they were, and now to see politicians and people of various stature, so to speak, starting to talk about these plans for CBDC. One, it clearly indicates to me that this has been this has been a plan for quite a while. Governments aren't the most efficient things in the world. So the fact that this is all kind of coming to the forefront now is not accidental. But and also it really demolishes this idea that a lot of people in crypto have kind of been like, well, there's basically been like 2 kinds of crypto developers, if you want to say it like this. People who are like, okay, tell us what to do and we'll do it just like you want us to. Just give us some guidance, and that's not working, right? I mean, we're seeing that with Coinbase of all things right now. Whether you like Coinbase or not, it's hard to say that this is not just a big publicly traded company that is trying to follow all the rules. And then you've had other people who are like, it's better to ask for forgiveness and permission. Let's just see what happens. So how, to me, it seems like you're in a position where you might actually have to say, okay, how do we fight this? How do we stop people from being able to control everything I can say, do, eat, where I can live, where I can travel? How do we get past that? What does that look like?
I feel like you're lobbing a softball for me, because this is like my time to pitch Deeplake. So I'm CTO and co-founder at Deeplake, and one of the things that we're doing is actually trying to enable developers. We're creating primitives. We're creating an API and access to data, access to Bitcoin directly, that make financial primitives much easier to use directly on Bitcoin. And so, like, one of the things we're actually trying to do is make it easier for developers to kind of build financial relationships in many different forms, right? permission in a permissionless way, like I said, directly on Bitcoin. And hopefully what we're going to see is, like, as more and more people get frustrated about kind of the direction that we're going, that we kind of bring in developers who are willing to actually try and change things, right? We've seen a lot of that currently, but I think that frustration level is exploding outside of, like, our crypto native world, right? And we're going to see an influx of people who want to build something different. And like I said, we're hoping to enable these financial relationships, think loans, credit cards, those kinds of things. Anything that you would walk into a bank and do, we want to be able to enable and make it easier than, like, having to write a PSBT directly on Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, Deeplake is phenomenal. It's actually, I'll probably wind up writing a piece about Deeplake on the flagship Stacks Outpost here before long, because you really did hit the nail on the head in that DeFi is the way. I mean, I think that anyone who has been in this period, in this ecosystem for any amount of time, at least long enough to see what's happened with, things like Celsius and 3AC and so forth, to know that DeFi is the way forward. I mean, it's transparent, it's safe, it's and now when you're talking about Bitcoin and you're talking about being able to build real financial products, okay, if you say the word DeFi and you think, oh, Tendies, yeah, from 2019 or 2020 or whatever, no, like, that was an iteration. That was you have people who are like, hey, we can do this with the smart contract, but things evolve, things don't stay static, right? So to see being able to make real financial products, that's definitely the way. I think that is a huge part of the puzzle. Oh, we got Nat in the house.
That's what I'm saying.
Man, sorry about the mix up this morning.
All good. Can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, no problems, man. No problems. I was just running around a bit, so I was trying to get back indoors before you guys started. So now I've got, like, just kids are absolutely everywhere. Mommy playing Switch with the kids and everything. So it's just absolute noise and chaos. So I'm coming to the kitchen to just rest in here for a minute.
No, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Like, just getting back to the beginning of the show, Nat's one of the guys who encouraged me to get involved with Stacks Advocates, and who really encouraged what I was doing with writing and so forth. And without input from him and feedback from literally everyone here, we probably wouldn't even have this podcast today. So I definitely wanted to start by acknowledging that and saying thank you for all your support. And in addition to, just being a good friend and a great community member, Nat is a absolute brilliant guy in terms of crypto in general and Bitcoin. I've seen him go toe to toe with a lot of people and make them leave with their tail between their legs. So, so yeah, we talked about NFT clothing club a little bit, but we didn't go too far in it.
You know what? It's not that deep, but you know what? It's not that deep at all. To just sometimes on Twitter, it gets annoying. You can get up sometimes, and you look real BS, and you just need to figure to. And I suppose it happened. It's gonna happen to me. Yeah. I did add to some of you guys first started. Then I was driving at the same time, so yeah. But Conrad, he was trying. I heard too much on the NFT clothing clubs.
Oh. Yeah, your mic is dropping a little bit. We didn't catch all of that.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out pretty bad, man.
It must be interference from that switch.
Is that better?
So far,
it seems better anyway. A lot better. I can see a lot more. But I was just saying that Conrad was Conrad was saying about not for an NFT clothing. I mean, he's free, right? Like, what did Conrad let you?
Oh, Doc, he played it pretty close to the chest. You know, he didn't. He said, and it is cool. It's a forward thinking project in terms of having, you know, a digital fashion line that has real world fashion attached to it, right? And expanding the use case of NFTs. We didn't go too far past that, but it was. I did ask if I would be able to cover my future virtual self with some of your clothing one day, and you know, it seems like there's a good chance that'll happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. As I heard speak to earlier, was the fact that there was not as going on now, but there was not on people actually in the, and I don't even want to say under this. I want to say more the entire space. That has been the flip side of it in some way, because we've got into the space, they're trying to find new things, do lots of creators into this, but a lot of people, they're not really under decentralization and sovereignty. They don't, you know, should be used. They just jump in
Here,
off of the fact.
Hold that
Told them
thought.
about these.
Try to disconnect and reconnect. Let's see if we can improve your connection a little bit.
Yeah, I think your connection's kind of shot there, mate.
Yeah, this great discussion so far, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Real quick, while it was on my mind when we were talking. Oh, he's back. There we go.
Let me try without the headphones. Can you guys see me? Yeah.
Yeah, so far so good,
And
man.
you can hear me, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's not cutting out every few, so
okay,
it's a lot better.
Cool. Maybe it was the headphones. Yeah. So sorry, right? I'm not sure how much you guys got, but I was just saying that the whole kind of premise behind what we're doing is it's kind of like two-pronged, because there is right, this education about folks who are not necessarily what we feel, as I said, that happened with NFTs. People were just going for it of the hype, you know. I made X money selling whatever, right? And the space, not understanding the ego, said you get the rug pulls, you get the bad name, and I think I've said this in plenty of purple pill on there as well, and also in lots of STs, is that a lot of people in the bull run came in solely hype. Like, I mean, even I didn't have this much hype. Like, okay, yeah, what are the coins about? Use white paper or something, or learn how to use a wallet. And what's happened with, I'd say, which is a good thing, because you're bringing on more people all the time. If you're not educating those people of the space, then they go off, buy anything, and get rugged. Yeah. So I've
been there.
In it's literally like where NFTs in 2017. Yeah. Okay, so these are going to title deeds to physical objects at some time, and that's where I left off of my in 2017. So by the time it came out, okay, yeah, so we can apply the knew that all the way back at Rare Pepe, right? Like, you know, like what's going on this new, you know? I think it was after I went on over Bored Apes. It was just like,
well, yeah, you're right. Like when you look at when you look at what NFTs, the real crossover in the real world is going to be, it's digital ownership, right? It's a digital representation of ownership, and that can be physical goods and services. And in that way, you are ahead of the curve. We've got about 9 minutes left, guys. I wanted to, just as you were coming on, we were talking about, kind of like the CBDC kind of anti-crypto narrative finally coming to the forefront in popular discussion, based on economic issues that are going on. I mean, I've heard more people that don't normally talk about crypto be like, "Hey, how do I get Bitcoin?" just in this past week than I ever have in my personal life. And so I guess just let's go around the table, and I guess Doc, we'll start with you since we'll be going clockwise from my screen anyway. What do you think? What do you think the next 6 months looks like for a crypto native who is trying to sort out this uncertainty? And what do you think the crypto community needs to focus on going forward to make sure that we maintain our right to transact? Because really that's what you're getting right down to, is a very base level freedom.
Honestly, I think going forward, I've seen people even writing senators on this and writing like their legislatives and just against the CBDCs altogether, because I personally think they're bad news. You know what I mean? If I decide to give someone, $100 to help them out, I don't think my bank needs to know about that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm all for the people holding the power, and that is not the way. I honestly, besides just opposing it with your legislation, I really don't know how else we could really go forward at this moment.
Okay, cool. Dan, got any final thoughts here?
Just that I think part of this is education. Part of this is changing the vocabulary that we use to talk about these situations, and that's a generational kind of shift, right? We're still using like the current financial system's words to describe what they're doing, and I don't think they're sufficient for describing kind of the peril that we're being put in, right? With CBDCs, with fractional reserve banking, and so a lot of it's education. It's a hard thing because getting people to shift their mindsets, getting people to shift their language, like I said, is a generational kind of set of work, right? It's not something that happens overnight. I think we just have to keep pushing on those fronts, keep raising our voices, and hopefully we're not building the tools that now allow them to enslave us.
Cool. Nat, you got any thoughts on this?
A lot. But I'll keep it simple. I heard you were playing the and I've shared that clip with members of family and older and friends. They literally can't believe that for like years now. It's just like a step, and it's so close. A lot of people are asking me, like, how do we not have this happen? And my kind of two kind of things for that is, I mean, it's people like it or not, it's going to happen. Is that they need to then make some and protest, and in a way, not everybody's going to come out with this. Some people might write to their local settlers, as we have in the UK, but I feel the action, and the smallest action I stand here is that if you're a little bit of an orange pill a day, shall I say, because it's not financial advice, but yeah, if you're gaining to accumulate in some way, shape, or some Bitcoin, you know, classic style investments, then in that sense, to position yourself to be on the other side of the fence, as you know, be inevitable. So yeah.
No, cool. No, you're right. I think that the takeaway is one of the most powerful forms of protest that any of us can take part in right now is actually buying Bitcoin. Just again, not even from a return on investment perspective, from a we're not okay with this. We want a different system. And with that, we're almost out of time. I do want to thank all of you for coming on. This was a very fun discussion. If the community likes it, I hope that, you know, you guys will all come on again. In honor of this very first episode, the Honey Badgers, which is a ordinal community, 10,000 honey badgers within the first million inscriptions. We're actually going to be raffling one off. And if and I'm going to put in the Twitter post how people can enter for the raffle. And any of you guys who were guests today, if you'd like your own honey badger, just slide in the DMs and I've got one for you. And so thank you all for coming. Everyone go check out Flagship. Be on the lookout for my next articles from Flagship. I'll be interviewing Dan here for Deeplake Finance for sure, because DeFi on Stacks, which is another way to say DeFi on Bitcoin, is a extraordinarily powerful narrative that still hasn't fully been formed, and these guys are working hard on that. Thanks again for everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, man. Dude, it was